Okay, here we go.
Oh man, are we in Visual Studio limbo again? Visual Studio purgatory? Alright. There we go. So, my plan for today is to run through some forms examples primarily. Then towards the end, if you'd like some time to work on your assignment, I think that's we can use some in-class time for that if you like. Or we can keep going with the examples if you feel the examples are useful. Sound good? Good. So, create new project. We will want Windows form, app, C#, example 1. There we go. So, let's see if we can think of, here's one. So, last time in class, we did the collapse conjecture. As part, because it was on the test, we went through the algorithm. Let's make a Windows form which will calculate the collapse sequence starting at some given input value and output the entire collapse sequence for that number into a rich text box. Sound good? Okay. So, in terms of controls, this one's relatively simple. We'll need the toolbox. Toolbox. There we go. We will need a text box. We will need a rich text box. And we'll need a button.
So we have a button, toolbox, and text box.
Yep, this big one is called a rich text box. The small one is a text box, the big one is a rich text box. Let's change the text on the button. Say, calculate collapse sequence. There we go. So far, so good. Everybody got that so far?
Yeah.
You got that? You got that? Double click on the button, and this will pop open our button click event. Now, we want to calculate the collapse sequence. If we wanted to store the collapse sequence in an array, we would find difficulty in doing so. Arrays are always of a fixed size upon declaration, but the number of steps it takes to reach any particular number in the COLAT sequence is unbounded. So, that is to say, the number of steps in the full COLAT sequence for any given number is unbounded. For example, this is a COLAT sequence for a few different numbers. This is how the COLAT sequence merges into itself. So, is this the COLAT sequence? Doesn't look like the COLAT sequence. The orbits of small numbers. Let's see here. Well, at any rate, this is like, as you can see, like there's a pattern to it, but in general, one of the interesting things about the COLAT sequence, the reason that I was even talking about the COLAT sequence, and the reason it's an interesting problem, is while it has been generally observed that anytime you run the COLAT sequence, you arrive eventually at 1, there's no mathematical proof that this is the case. So there's no way to tell, theoretically, that, you know, if you pick any number, it will converge to 1 if you apply the COLAT's algorithm. But it has never been observed not to do so. You know, every single time it's been tried, it always has converged, despite that there's no mathematical reason why that should be the case. So it's an interesting little problem. But anyway, so let's write an implementation of COLATs. Rather than store this in an array, what I would prefer to do, create a string and add the elements to the string as we are generating them, and then when we're finished, we return that string into, well, we put that string into the rich text box and thereby finish the algorithm. So, let's create a string output. Start off with one opening brace. Why are you complaining? Oh. Well, of course it hasn't been used yet. All right. Never trust a computer that you can't throw out the window. So, we now need to gather our input from the text box. Now, in order to do this, we need to take a look at form1.designer.cs. This will tell us what our text box, our rich text box, and our buttons are called inside of our code environment. So, text box 1, text box 1.text is what we need to grab. Let's store this to an integer called n, and of course we will need to convert it to an integer from a string. So, integer.parse. Or maybe perhaps I have lowercase I. Is it int.parse? Yeah, it's int.parse. There we go. So far, so good? Now, remember remember our algorithm for the collapse procedure. We want to loop so long as n has not reached 1. While n is greater than 1. If n is greater than, or n mod 2 is equal to 0, that's our even case. Else, we do the other thing. N is equal to n divided by 2, if it's even. And n is equal to 3 times n divided by, or plus 1. I'm going to turn off the autocomplete. Oh my goodness. Oh. Intella trace? No, it's Intella. It's Intella something. IntelliSense. There we go. So, for each collapse number, we wish to add that to the string output. I would argue the best place to do that is right at the beginning. I thought I had turned you off. Or, so output is equal to output plus n plus the comma. In this case, n will automatically format to a string. Make sense? This will quit once n has reached 1, so we should add n in at the end of the sequence. I'm putting it in round braces for effect. And finally, rich text box 1 dot text will be equal to output. Does this make sense? So, if we execute, if I input the number 1, I just get 1. If I input the number 2, it goes 2, then 1. 4, 4, 2, 1. 1024. 1024, 5, 12, 256, 1, 28, 64, 32, 16, 8, 4, 2, 1. Collatz really likes the powers of 2. But watch what happens if I increase that by even 1. It gets much longer, the sequence.
Dr. Moore, couldn't someone mention that they've been searching for a number that potentially doesn't go down to 1 or approach 1?
Mm-hmm.
Can't they just use a computer program to search for a number?
Yeah, they have, but every one that's been tested by computers also arrives at 1.
So can't we therefore conclude that it is true?
No,
Why not?
because,
Because numbers go on forever, like.
yeah, actually, because numbers go on forever. So it doesn't matter if you've tested up to, 14 trillion. The 14 trillion and first number might break the sequence, right? Unless you have a proof, a mathematical proof that it doesn't, you must assume that unless you've tested it, it's not true.
What would be the prize if you did find a number? Would I get an honor?
Instant fame!
Okay,
Yes, Nobel Prize territory.
okay.
Basically, mathematicians are extremely smart people. If there was a way to do this using existing means of mathematical proof, they probably would have found it by now. Maybe, but probably. Maybe not, but probably. In order to demonstrate the Collatz conjecture, you would need to basically develop a new type of mathematical proof that has never existed before, which would make you like you would need a genius on the level of Euclid, to be able to do that. Plus, you have the added difficulty of convincing the mathematical community to accept a new form of proof, right? So,
From someone that's in college.
yes. Oh man, everybody who's heard about the Collatz conjecture at some point tries to come up with proof for it, but I gave up after like an hour or two. There's just, basically the problem is, in order to come up with a proof for it, you need to recognize a pattern in it. And aside from the pattern of its generation, there's no formula which will predict the whole sequence that's not based on the previous number. It's so I can actually answer this question because I have mathematical training in this area. Generally speaking, in order to show that this sequence of numbers will eventually always arrive at 0, you need to demonstrate that something like it's always decreasing, but it's not always decreasing. It often jumps up, right? You would need to all right. Yeah. You need to so the Collatz numbers will generally go something like and then arrive at 1, right? To prove that these things always go to 1, you would need to prove that there's something like a mathematical function which bounds it, right? That it never crosses, that itself and that function reduces to 1 over time, right? The problem is, there is no function which bounds the Collatz conjecture, because you could just get unlucky, right? And pick a number which results in an infinite, in theory, an infinite series of multiplied by 3 plus 1s, right? A jump up followed by a jump down, followed by a jump up, followed by a jump down. In theory, there's a number that produces an infinite series of those, right? So basically you have to prove that that can't exist, that it'll always eventually hit a point where it comes down, right? So there's strong evidence that there's no such number that just continues up forever. But there's no proof, because we can't draw a bounding function around the thing. So that's the Collatz conjecture. It's fun. I like it.
Worked.
It worked. Awesome. Did it work for you?
Yes, but can you change the comma?
Which comma?
The in line 17.
This one here?
Yes.
Oh, that's just so that the numbers come out separated with
Oh.
commas.
Right.
Let me show you what happens if we leave it out. Look. Not as nice to read. In fact, impossible to get any information out of. But with that, we can, because like we're working on raw strings, right? If we want things nicely formatted, we must nicely format them. Yeah? Okay. Shall we do another example? Let's see. Can I make a new form? Is it possible to make a new form in these? New project. Should in theory be possible, right? File. New. File.
Project.
Well, I want to do multiple forms in the same project. You know, I want to know if that's possible because it saves a step. Yeah. All right. It's a weird place to put it. Right click on the project name, add, form, Windows Forms.
Forms of,
There.
and then Windows forms.
Yep, add. And there we have form 2. Nice. I would never have found that without looking it up.
How
Yes?
do I get rid of this error?
Let me see.
Where was that turn on?
1 second.
File add.
Nope. Right click, Windows Form App 3, right click. Add. Windows Form.
Three columns. This is this one.
Yes. Sorry. So look here, take a look. Basically, you must have deleted doesn't seem like it.
I didn't touch the one that
I know it's Shift F7. Oh, it's still running. Oh. Oh, you can do that from project as well. Okay. So, where's the- Try closing the project and reopening it, that should bring up the designer. I'm sorry. Okay. So, how about we do, does anybody have any suggestions for a problem they'd like to see solved?
Put in drug dosage calculation.
Drug dosage calculation? Sure. What's the formula?
X equals D over H times Q.
dx equals d over h times q?
Yes.
Okay.
D, where D is the desired dose,
Mm-hmm.
H is the strength, Q is the unit of measure or quantity of unit,
D is desired dose.
desired dose, H is dosage strength, Q is unit of measure, X is unknown dosage, or the dose we're trying to calculate.
Right. Sure. That one is relatively simple.
And X was what?
What you're trying to calculate.
So, for this one, let's try one of these just for fun.
What is it?
That's a track bar. So with a track bar, in the properties, you can specify what the maximum and the minimum that you should go to are. You can also specify the step. So, let's say we go from 0 to 100 in increments of 5. And let's make that Q. I don't know if that makes sense in a medical context, but I want to demonstrate some of these. So we had D, H, and Q. slide bars for E, H, and Q. Or, sorry, what do they call these again? Value,
Dose.
yeah,
Which one are we on?
track bars, they call them track bars. Now, we need an output. So, let's see. Yeah, I think just a regular old label will probably do. Now that I'm thinking about it, we run into a potential problem. H and Q are both on the bottom of this fraction, right? If either one of them is 0, this will cause a 0 division error when we try to calculate this formula. So, rather than have these guys start at 0, let's make them start at 1.
So I think it should be D over H times Q.
Oh,
Sorry about that. There you go.
cool. Now,
So all of them should be from starting at minimum 1?
yes,
0.
technically only H needs to be, but, you know, why not? So, up to now, we have triggered everything using buttons, right? But there are other types of events related to forms that we can make use of. For example, if we double click on these track bar scroll. That is, when someone changes the position on the track bar, we can modify the value using this method. I see I already have one for track bar 1. And might as well get one for track bar 3. Oop. Oh yeah. This problem. My favorite problem. So, there we go. Why didn't you have View Designer?
I don't.
It's no wonder I couldn't find it. It wasn't there. Weird. Are you on the right project type? Strange. Maybe the computer just hates you.
It's there now,
Is it now? Okay, good.
but I had to restart.
Ah, well, so it goes.
So you have all of them in one line, oh my.
So, rather than repeat this calculation in these 3 methods, what should we be doing? We write a
Method.
correct. We write a method. Public float dosage. Technically, these track bars produce ints, so we'll have ints going in and a float coming out. So, in goes V, in goes Q, in goes H. And we return No, that's a very bad suggestion, Mr. Computer. It's D divided by H, which I'm going to cast to a float, multiplied by Q, which I believe is the same as our formula. Indeed it is. Does this make sense? In theory, I guess you could also modify the inputs to floats. They will automatically cast if you put integers in. So it goes. So, we now wish to calculate the dosage based on the inputs taken from all three of the track bars. So, dosage. This is where it would be very useful to like label which track bar was which, you know? Right? Text is, oh, that's for the label. Right? Because we basically have to click on this, double click, see what it points to. That one's track bar 2, so D is track bar 2. D is the first parameter, so track bar 2 is the first one in. Track bar 2 dot value. Track bar, which one's Q? Let's take a look. Q is track bar 1. And finally, by process of elimination, track bar 3 dot value.
Oh, ours will be different because the color is so I have to.
Ah, yes, you'll have to figure out which of yours is which. Yeah.
So basically, D was the first one, right? Or D would be the first parameter.
I also created them out of order,
Yeah, me too.
so, so the process is you take the track bar, you double click on it, it'll put your cursor in the method for that track bar, so that's how you figure out which ones are which. Again, this is why labeling would be very nice.
So, but what was your first parameter? D was your first parameter or H was your first parameter? So D is your first parameter, right? So D
In my method, it goes DQH.
Okay.
Yeah.
Strange.
Perfect.
I suppose in theory, you could have put like more of those two lines into the function as well. But I don't know, it's just like the correspondence between a method and an actual mathematical formula, you know. I couldn't give it up. But yeah, then all you have to do is copy paste, copy paste, copy paste. No, I want. run this one. Ah. Hmm. Okay. So I figured out the problem. We created two forms within one project. When we execute the project, we are not executing the form directly. We are starting up program.cs. Program.cs, if we take a look, it's reasonably simple. Application.run new form 1. It's only running form 1. So if we want to run form 2, we change that to form 2, or we could also run both of them. Hopefully. Yeah. So it'll wait till the first one is finished and then it'll open the second one. So seems like we probably actually do want to just run the second one. There we go. All right, run. There we go. Oh, got the wrong text box type. I've got the wrong text box targeted. Whoopsie. Form 2, form 2, form 2. There it is, yes. Label or probably. And there you can see. You see how our numbers nicely, like, we get it immediately as the track bar is moving, right? We don't have to click a button and get the result once. It is calculating that formula many times per second. Right? Interesting? Cool? Even? Possibly cool?
Dr. Moore, I can't, it's still sticking with the Form 1, it's not, second form.
Okay. Oh, that's it. Okay. That makes sense. Your prolapse example is in a different project,
Okay.
and I believe the problem was that you weren't compiling the new project, you were still compiling the old project. So,
I can switch on like that.
yeah.
Okay.
Here's you got the wrong one too. Right before. Would you like me to move that, or do you have a question?
Yes, I have a question. Somehow when I change the D value and Q value, it's working, but the minute that I change the H value, it's even zero.
Oh, it seems to me that what you got is
That only works.
int conversion errors. Yep. Okay. And I showed.
Okay.
Notice how I have a decimal point and you don't.
Yep.
Right?
I
So,
use, well, I use int rather than float all the way.
Right.
Okay.
so remember our type conversions.
Yeah.
With respect to division, if we have an int going in and an int going in, the result will be an int.
And then if this, yep.
It
got
throws away the decimal place. That worked?
Yep.
Did it work?
That just.
Okay. Did you get it working?
No, it wasn't showing it as I
Her?
Perfect.
Yeah.
So that's good.
Hmm.
It's cooler, I have a.
Ooh.
Hmm. So this is the project. Maybe. Open with, maybe, maybe not. I think it's in the wrong directory. Yeah.
Louis says that there's no problem, no problem. But how can I add it to my access?
Which one? Which source?
This is a C sharp source code.
Mhm. So it's basically complaining that but possible that it's If we take a look at what that would be. Article path. That's where it thinks it is, but this directory is wrong. Right? It's not in SynCal, it's in assignment to NKL. Right? So it is, the computer is right. The computer is usually right.
Yes.
It is actually not in the right. But you could, like, since you can load it from the CS project, C# project file, directly from File Explorer.
So how can I change the?
I would just remove them. You know, I would just like get rid of this because it's no longer interesting. Remove. They're just broken links.
That's it?
They're just broken links. If you want to open the project from File Explorer. Yes. The best things in life are things worth waiting for. Or something like that. How's it going?
I lost the thing again.
You lost Twitch?
The form.
Oh. When did this come back? Design. It's taking its sweet time, isn't it? Just give it a moment. The designer takes a moment to load. But yeah, that's how you get to it. It's designer. All right. So, would you folks like to see another example, or would you like some time to work on your assignments? One vote for assignment? What do you think?
Yeah, we can do that, or if you can show us another example, that would be helpful. Yeah.
So, your vote is for another example?
Yeah.
Another example? Okay. What's your
I'm
vote?
still getting this to load, but example,
Okay.
it's not loading.
This is not a democracy, but in any tyranny, it is useful for the tyrant every once in a while to consult the will of the people, to give the illusion that it's democracy. So I will, in this case, go with the will of the people. We shall have another example. So, apparently the quick way to add a new form is project add form. I don't know why the help on the internet went to such convoluted, ways of doing it. But there you have it. Add Windows form. Oh, there we go. Anybody have a problem? Formula they'd like to see implemented? Anything? I leave it open to the crowd.
It's not loading.
Is it this computer?
I don't.
It's form 1. Huh. There it is. magic fingers. So, how about we calculate, oh, here's one. Rolling average. All right, so the average of the last 5 numbers entered. So we have slots for 5 numbers, initialize them all to 0 or something, and as we input numbers, we see an average of an update of a rolling average at the bottom. How's that? Sound good? So let's add a button, label it add number. Add a text box. And let's add a label. So, have a straight label. So, double click on the button to add a method. Now, in this case, we need to keep some data between button presses. So we need some data storage. We need data storage outside of the method. So, let us add an instance variable to the class, make it an array, call it data, that's fine. Now we will need to initialize this data. Can anybody spot where we might initialize data?
Under the initialize one.
Yes. Inside of our constructor. Data is equal to new int array of size, oh, I don't know.
25.
See, that is going to be, I'm just going to be entering so many numbers. I don't really want to enter that many numbers. Let's do 10. So, every time we click the button, we want to perform the following operation. We want to copy items this way through the array, deleting the first one in the array, and then, at the end, we want to insert the new value at the end. Right? This way, the the oldest value is always deleted when a new value is entered. We can do this with a loop. For int I is equal to 0, I is less than data dot length minus 1, because we want to go to 1 less than the size of the data structure. I plus plus. Data at I is overwritten with data at I plus 1. That's the copying over. Now, we want to insert into the final element of the array the new data that we have received. Text box 1 dot text, that's what the value is. We want to interpret that as an integer. Int dot parse text box 1. I think it's complaining at me because B should be capitalized. There we go. We want to save that in data at, knowing that the size is 10, we could just say index 9, or we could say data dot length minus 1. Which will always be the last element of the array, regardless how big that array is. Make sense? So that copies it down. We now need to calculate the average of that data structure. Int sum is equal to 0, int count is equal to data dot length. For int I is equal to 0, I is less than data dot length, I plus plus, sum plus equals data at I. There we go. Now we output, I think that this was label something, label.
Label 1?
Maybe. Label 2 actually. Label 2 dot text is equal to sum divided by convert to float. Dot toString. I'm just going to modify this quickly so that I can run this third form. There we go. We add 1, 2, 3, 4, 3, 2, set 5, 4, set 5, 6, 4, 5, 1, 5. That's a rolling average. Not working? Having difficulty?
No.
Having difficulty?
Yep.
It's stuck in that. I found it all in there, but it's,
Oh. So, program.cs. Oh, is this the right, no, that's the wrong one. Program.cs, still targeting form 2. Yeah, that's what.
I'm getting 0.5.
No, that's correct.
That's right.
Yeah, because right now you have an array of 9 zeros and 1 5. Click the button again. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And the average of 5 5s is 5.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
How do I change this? How do I change this?
So for the assignment, we have to create a
So you go to
simple
program.cs and
calculator.
you change this guy right
So
there.
simple calculator means 2 plus 2 is equal to 4.
simple calculator uses two text boxes for input.
Mhm.
The pocket calculator uses actual buttons
Oh.
for the inputs.
Yeah, you know, like a,
Yeah. So that is like the bonus question, but what about the second question? Like, I'm confused.
oh, that's,
The
okay.
simple.
I will draw what the interface should look like.
Perfect, that would be great. Okay, got it. Okay.
Simple calculator.
Okay.
This is pocket calculator. I guess technically, it would be,
So
would
all,
be an asterisk.
like, if you press any button, the answer should be like, accurate, or else we just have to create a no function.
Oh, there's an equals button.
There's a no decimal point.
No decimal point, yeah, don't worry about decimal point.
Okay, but it should be working condition, not like just a picture of calculator.
Yes,
Okay.
although, I guess if you were to upload a picture, if you uploaded just a picture of a calculator, I would give you 0 marks. If you at least gave me a Windows form with the buttons, you get something for the bonus mark. Okay? Wouldn't be much, but I would give you something for it. Yeah, and like, in an ideal case, it behaves like a pocket calculator as well. So, when you press like 4, 5, 6, the display goes 4, 45, 456, right? Then when you hit plus, clears the display, you hit your next number, right? 1, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. Then you hit equals, and it displays the sum of the two. 9, 7, 5. So. Normally you would put an output column on the other side, but whatever. Direction is floating the wrong way. I apologize. I didn't get a lot of sleep last night because of the baby. She's only cut 6 teeth. She's got 14 to go. And like 8 of them are molars.
Oh, God.
So, she does not tolerate pain as well as her brother did. And he didn't seem to tolerate it very well, so, good Lord.
Oh. And usually when they're getting their teeth, they have fever and diarrhea and.
See, ours, only the once did Felix have something like that.
They lose weight, they don't eat anything. I
Mm.
don't have a baby, but I have like nieces and nephews, and I saw them when they were having teeth. Cranky and.
Yeah. In our case, it's more like general crankiness plus just staying up for hours at a time at night. Last night, Cordelia was up between the hours of 11:30 and 1:30. So, like, she just cried for 2 hours in the middle of the night. I don't know how Felix got any sleep, because we didn't get any sleep. That might explain the general crankiness in the house this morning. Yeah, good Lord.
So for the bonus quiz question,
Yeah.
we just use operation one time or more than 2 times, or a combination of other operators.
Oh, so, yeah, if the more closely you simulate a real calculator, the happier I'll be.
Do we get
Right,
extra points?
but
if
don't
everything
go-
is working?
Don't go like, well, they're all extra points.
I mean, like, if everything is working, then we can get an extra points.
Yeah, 5 extra points, that's what the bonus value of the question is.
I mean, like, more.
You want more bonus extra points? Oh,
Yes.
I see.
So if the entire calculator is working, so
Yes.
can we get an extra points for
Um,
the exam?
I will give you a deal. I'll give you a deal. If you give me a full working implementation of a calculator, including a decimal button
Oh,
and a square root button,
okay, then I'm fine.
Oh, yeah.
I'm fine with the fine.
and if it behaves precisely the way a pocket calculator does, I will give you 3 extra bonus marks on top of the 5 bonus marks that this question is worth.
I think I
But
have
it has to
already so
work
much things on my plate.
Exactly like a real calculator does, which means you'll need to play with your real calculator to figure out how it works and then implement that.
I'm okay with 5. I have so many things on my plate. And this is due on Sunday?
Sunday next.
Next Sunday.
Yeah. Okay. So, I think, why don't we take the remainder of the class to work on the assignment? Sound good? I think I'll end the in-class recording at this point then.